Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. As it is a lunch hour event that we're hosting, I'm going to give folks another minute or two to join up before we make the introduction to um, our presenter today and talk about the cluster grant. See, people are still rolling in. I'm going to give it till 3 o'clock past the hour, and then we'll begin. Or I'm sorry, 3 minutes past the hour. All right. Well, welcome once again. My name is Jason Lassard. I'm the Executive Director of the Alaska Mariculture Alliance. I'm very pleased to see so many folks joining us today for an update of the summary of the work to date on the Alaska Mariculture Grant Evaluation, which is being done by the good folks at Ecotrust. A little bit about the grant evaluation. Ecotrust is the Alaska Mariculture Cluster grant evaluator responsible for designing and implementing a framework to measure the effectiveness, equity, and long-term impact of the grant. Their work includes developing clear metrics and evaluation tools that assess outcomes across the grant's component projects. Ecotrust is also leading a participatory evaluation process that gathers input directly from Alaska's mariculture community, including tribal leaders, rural residents, farmers, and industry partners. This engagement occurs through one-on-one interviews, focus groups, and surveys to ensure that local voices and lived experiences inform how the program's success is measured. Ecotrust has collaborated with Southeast Conference to develop AMC's Theory of Change, a framework that visually maps how targeted investments are expected to lead to industry-wide outcomes such as increased capacity, collaboration, and equitable growth. This partnership helps the Alaska Mariculture Cluster adaptively manage its programs and demonstrate progress towards building a resilient and inclusive mariculture sector in Alaska. Presenting on this information today is Noah Enlow from Ecotrust. Noah is a program evaluator and an economist whose work focuses on integrating the three E's of social equity, ecological resilience, and economic development. He's worked with a wide range of partners and clients spanning the fields of sustainable business, community capital, workforce development, ecosystem restoration, and recreation. Noah's skill set includes program evaluation, economic impact analysis, ecosystem services analysis, market research, and community benefits and agreements and reporting. So without further ado, I'm really pleased to hand the mic over to Noah to present to you guys on the work that they've been doing at Ecotrust. Welcome, Noah.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason, and thank you, Molly, for coordinating, Alaska Mariculture Alliance, and all of you for coming to listen. I'm going to share my screen. Move this part out of the way, and now you can see. Um, Great. I'm here to present to you an evaluation uh, of impact to date of the Alaska Mariculture Cluster. This is We're going to take a deep dive into um, one of the some of the most important aspects of what the Mariculture Cluster is focusing on. There will be a a more comprehensive report coming out by the end of Q1 of next year. But this should give you a taste of what is to come. Just to preview the agenda, I'm going to begin by recapping the timeline of the evaluation, and then describing the groundwork and the methods used. Then I'm going to be reviewing the AMC targets for Alaska Native and rural communities, as well as the goals, the economic goals of the AMC. Then we will be diving into the industry challenges that have been identified. This is a part of the evaluation was to identify the most important industry challenges that the AMC is aiming to address. I'm going to focus on three of these in the following three sections: product and market development, stabilization and processing and distribution, and the hatchery and nursery sector. And all of this is driving towards an evaluation of AMC's efforts to build a robust value chain for seaweed and shellfish in Alaska. And then I'll give you conclude by talking about what's going to happen next. This should be about a 35 to 40 minute presentation, and hope to have at least 15 minutes left for Q&A. And I will share my email for additional Q&A. Okay, introduction and timeline. Beginning with introducing the team that is collaborating on this evaluation work. I'm Director of 3E Research and Evaluation at Ecotrust. I head up the measurement and evaluation team. We also have Denise Chin, our measurement and evaluation manager, Kennedy Smith, measurement and evaluation coordinator, who's Kennedy's present today. Kennedy, thanks for joining, and Jennifer New, who is from our coastal community and fisheries team, and she is joining our M&E team for the purposes of doing outreach in throughout Alaska in the mariculture community. And she is the SSP Food Systems Catalyst based in Juneau. A brief timeline. This work has been going on since Q4 of 2023. In the first two quarters of 2024, we drafted a theory of change and a list of indicators of progress that we're tracking. We finalized that theory of change and then presented it in Q1 of 2025 at the Mariculture Conference in Sitka. We have been conducting interviews with industry experts and community leaders starting in Q4 2024 and going through Q2 2025. In Q2 and Q3 2025, we've done some pretty extensive data analysis and document review leading towards this webinar. There will be a memo from this webinar published in December. And then in March, we're going to release a more complete report. The final evaluation will finish either in September 2026 or whenever the grant period is complete. There may be some extensions in the works. We'll see. Some notes on the groundwork. We began with the theory of change. Here's the one-pager that was distilled from 7 separate outcome mapping exercises, one for each grant component. Those were boiled down to a single page. This was presented in poster form at the Mariculture Conference in 2025 in Sitka. I'm not going to go into detail on this today, but I'm happy to send you a copy, and I'll also be sharing this slide deck, so you'll have access to this. Methods that we've employed, the groundwork for this. Evaluation included a range of informal conversations and site visits, document review, mostly of reporting, including RFP as well as quarterly and semi-annual reports, and analyzing data from the Airtable database that SEC has been collecting and compiling, 27 interviews with industry experts and community leaders from across the AMC region, with a strong focus on Alaska Native tribal citizens, Alaska Native organization representatives, farmers, and industry experts. A small sample survey, which has yielded very scant results that we're not putting a lot of emphasis on in this work. And last but not least, focus groups. We've had one very successful focus group in Kodiak, and we have three more planned in Kenai, Southeast, and Prince William Sound. Work to date, as I said, we presented the theory of change at Mariculture Conference, and we've been giving periodic updates to the governing body based on the Airtable data. In progress is we're doing a data gap analysis from the quarterly and semi-annual reports, and then an evaluation memo next month, and then a full evaluation report covering the years 2024 and 2025. That'll be complete by Q1 2026. Okay. I want to take some time to talk about the AMC targets. Okay. AMC targets and goals, I should say. AMC has set some targets for itself that 25% of resources will go to projects that benefit Alaska Native populations, and 25% of resources will go to projects that involve underserved rural communities. I have underserved in parentheses. We've really, broadened that to just discuss rural communities. Right now, the word underserved is a little bit out of favor with some federal funding agencies, so we're sort of de-emphasizing that. But we are discussing, the focus on rural communities and the access to mariculture assets in rural communities, as well as access to mariculture assets in and by Alaska Native populations. There are economic goals to grow a $100 million industry in 10 years and a $325 million industry in 20 years, and to create 550 total jobs across the mariculture sector in 10 years and 1,800 total jobs in 20 years. So those are the goals that have been set, and we're working on determining the progress towards those goals. Work to date in targeting Alaska Native populations. SEC tracks this question of whether the project engages and benefits Alaska Native populations, and the criteria for inclusion in this in this question are whether an Alaska Native-led organization, tribal agency, ANC, nonprofit, etc., is either project lead or project partner. So an example there would be the KP3 project at Chinook in Kodiak region, or has a collaborative agreement to work on the project or a letter of support for the project attesting to its benefits to Alaska Native populations and communities. And the final product or result of the project will benefit a tribe or Alaska Native organization. So an example of the latter two would be the kelp dryer in Prince William Sound, which has multiple letters of support from Native Village of Eoc, as well as Chugach Regional Resources Commission, and has specific benefits that it will confer to Alaska Native populations within Prince William Sound region. Oh, yes. And the results of that query, are that 50% of the projects by number across the AMC meet these criteria, are designed to engage and benefit Alaska Native populations. 44% do not, and 6% are uncategorized. And these are the projects that either complete or underway. When you look at rural communities, the question at issue is, are underserved rural communities involved in the project? And the criteria for inclusion are either the project is located in a rural community, or it has multiple locations, at least one of which is a rural community. So, for example, the kelp ag product R&D work led up by Pacific Kelp Company has been sourcing kelp from rural communities, including throughout Southeast, and I believe Kodiak as well. Or the final product or result of the project will benefit rural communities. So JIP 11 tests kelp drying methods and evaluates them. including criteria for their cost effectiveness at small scale. And so those results, this is a project by Barnacle, the results will be disseminated throughout rural communities and used as guidance towards rural communities in choosing kelp drying equipment and methods. So by these criteria, 53% of the projects, by number, 59 projects, do involve rural communities. 39% do not. That's 44 total projects. And then 8% are uncategorized. The process doesn't always yield a conclusive result as to whether or not it's involving a rural community, or there needs to be it's kind of a wait and see. Some feedback from interviewees. In Q2 2025, an interviewee who had received an award via an RFP expressed a support for awarding points for partnering with local tribes. This interviewee said this is a good bonus for the proposals. This is a good thing to have in the RFP. Okay, now we're going to dive into the industry challenges. This was an exercise that my team and SEC went through to determine, what are the industry challenges that exist in the mariculture industry that the AMC projects and resources are working to overcome. And there are 12. We identified these collaboratively using a combination of the theory of change, the interview data as analyzed by myself. The interview data weren't shared with SEC, but I provided insights from the interview data, and reviewing the quarterly and semi-annual reports in the RFP projects. And we determined that these 12 are the most important industry challenges. They're not the only ones that exist in the mariculture industry. These are the most important ones that the AMC is set up to provide. Okay, and they are access to capital, access to subsistence and food security. I would also add food sovereignty to that. Cultivation or growing mariculture species, food safety, governance and administration, the hatchery and nursery sector, innovation, technology and data, outreach, communication and knowledge exchange, product and market development, site selection and permitting, stabilization, processing and distribution, and finally, workforce development. Okay. Today, we're going to focus on these three: hatchery and nursery sector, product and market development, and stabilization, processing, and distribution. And we're going to do that because both the interviewees, from their commentary, and also, SEC from its vantage point, are in agreement that without these three sectors being successful, Alaska Mariculture cannot be successful. These are mission critical for the robustness and for the future success of the Alaska mariculture industry writ large, both the industry as a whole and also the success of the AMC in promoting and developing that industry. So we'll learn more about that as we go. Just some supporting commentary from the interviews. There are too many gaps in the value chain for a kelp farm to be viable now. Those gaps include robust seed, consistent seed quality, robust and cost-effective stabilization and processing, and buyers to sell into, market to sell into. From the oyster end of things, there is concern for quality. One interviewee who worked for an oyster company said, "My company doesn't want to flood the market with poor quality oysters. We need Alaska to be associated with high quality. And so we need very robust supply chain development to ensure that quality." Here's the snapshot of the resources being deployed by AMC-funded projects across the three industry challenges. These totals cover projects that are either in process or complete. Out of a total 112 projects that are funded by AMC that are either in progress or complete, 71 of them address one or more of these three industry challenges. 63% of projects do this. Okay, this kind of speaks to how important they are. These projects comprise $12.9 million deployed to date, which is a little bit more than a quarter of the total grant of $49 million. Okay. So they're really kind of punching above their weight in terms of the number of projects. In terms of the average size is a little bit smaller than the average size project. But these projects are as you'll see, doing critical work in addressing these three industry challenges. Okay, now we're going to dive into the three. Beginning, we're going to actually start from the end of the supply chain and move back towards the beginning. We're going to start with product and market development. So finding buyers and developing products or selling into product supply chains for Alaska Mariculture. Point blank, an interviewee told me Q4 2024, we need product development, marketing, and market development for kelp. Okay, oyster matters here too, but the kelp is where things are really, it's very important that we intervene and that we focus energy. A snapshot of work to date. There are 20 projects in progress and complete that are devoted to product and market development. 16 of them focus on kelp and other seaweeds. This includes, I believe, 3 that focus on both seaweeds and shellfish. And part of product development is product diversification. Right now, we have 6 mariculture species that are being explored for, for new markets through the other species RFP. These are mariculture species for which there isn't a market right now. They include both new species of kelp and new species of shellfish. I should say there isn't a market from Alaska right now. And they're being brought in to newly developed supply chains through the other species RFP. Here are 10 product categories that are being explored and tested just for kelp. These are being tested across 20 projects with reports. Okay, there may be other projects that are working on them that don't have reporting yet. There are 7 related RFPs, JIPs, kelp ag product R&D, feasibility studies, other species, food sector market research, seaweed tissue analysis, and scientific consulting on heavy metals. There are 3 grant components that they cross: R&D, marketing, and equipment. And these we're defining these products using reporting language, so we're not fitting this into a formal industry classification. We're just talking we're using the language that the project itself uses. This doesn't include work underway without an interim or final report. These product categories include animal feed, bath products, carbon credits, cosmetics, dietary supplements, finished food products, food ingredients, pharmaceuticals, plant biostimulants, and wine and spirits based on kelp. So we have product diversification going on. That is what we need. Here's a supporting comment from a joint innovation project lead. We had a buyer looking for kelp. Our joint innovation project gave us the firepower we needed to meet that market. Okay. So this speaks to the success of this joint innovation project in helping a farmer reach the market. I've got a couple of examples here. The first one is from plant biostimulants, the Seed to Soil project, led by Pacific Kelp Company, which is testing kelp-based biostimulants in wine and turfgrass industries that promise to enhance soil health and increase crop resilience. There is an explicit commercialization and supply chain development element to this project. There's a range of partners, including Washington State University and Cornell University, which are directly doing the tests. There is kelp being sourced from Sequester, Seed Grove, and Alaska Ocean Farms. There's also Kuhn Sustainability, which is working on product registration for plant biostimulants. This is in progress. It doesn't have a final report yet. We also have the Novel Compound Discovery Project from Alaskan Kelp, the aim of which is to extract high-value bioactive compounds like alginates, fucoidan, etc., in commonly cultivated kelp species sourced from Kodiak. There is a potential market size for these compounds in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and the primary industrial uses are dietary supplements, pharmaceuticals, and cosmetics. And so this project will provide critical data and guidance on extraction processes, commercial viability, and species. Which kelps are best for which compounds? It's in progress, almost complete. Final report is pending. So here we have product diversification here. We have 4 categories just mentioned across these 2 projects. An interviewee comment in Q2 2025. Biostimulants are a good entry-level market opportunity for kelp. So in other words, they're not that hard to access. Some of these kelp markets are more difficult to access than others. Biostimulants are not the most difficult. They also may not be the most profitable, but beginning with biostimulants can provide a ladder up to higher value uses of kelp that may require greater, more specifications in terms of the kelp itself, also more greater investment in refining processes at the local or regional level. Here's an example from oysters. Diversifying Alaska's oyster industry, led by Blue Star Oyster Company, is expanding the range of species of oysters that can be cultivated in Southeast Alaska to Olympia, Kumamoto, and Virginica. Currently, Pacific oysters are the dominant marketable species. So doing this will increase the resilience and product diversity of Alaska oysters industry. It's funded through the other species RFP, and it's in progress. Okay. An interviewee told me in Q1 2025, right now, the most attainable mariculture market is oysters. Okay, so right now, with oysters, we already have an established market and buyers. What we're looking for is quality and diversity. And so that's being worked on through these funded projects. Okay. Challenge 2 is stabilization, processing, and distribution. In an interview, he told me in Q1 2025, there are not enough stabilizing equipment or facilities in Alaska. And this is really important because kelp begins to rot after hours of being out of the water. Stabilization needs to happen as soon as it leaves the water. And so we need to have stabilization facilities in Alaska. AMC work is addressing this issue with 27 projects devoted to stabilization, processing, and distribution. Currently underway or complete. 15 separate stabilization and processing equipment and methods are being tested and reported. And this is just from joint innovation projects. There may be other methods that are being reported on for other projects that aren't specifically reporting them. But 15 separate methods are being tested and reported. They're not standalone. They fit together in different ways. I will show you on the next slide. And 92% of the stabilization project resources are being awarded to rural communities. This is critical because kelp is being farmed in rural areas and the stabilization facilities need to be close to the farms. Okay, so here are the kelp stabilization and processing methods being explored by the JIPs, just the 11 projects with reports. It's not a comprehensive list. The methods aren't standalone. For example, you may want to dewater kelp before you dry it, for example. There needs to be a diversity in methods to achieve diverse markets at diverse scales of production. There are methods that are best suited to artisanal kelp production, like a solar high tunnel. And there are methods that are maybe best suited to production at scale, such as belt drying, for example, or solar tower drying. Multiple avenues are being explored to grow a kelp value chain that meets market demand. Some value chains want dried kelp. Some value chains want wet kelp. We need to have both in order to be successful at meeting multiple markets. And so the stabilization question is related to the product and market development question. Those two kind of come hand in hand. What the buyer needs needs to drive what the kelp processor is providing. An interview told me in Q4 2024, farmers will have to take control of primary processing in order to meet markets. And this is borne out by the funded projects by AMC. For example, the Chinook tribe has recently been funded for a $2.3 million project to develop a kelp primary processing platform, the KP3. It will have 5 processing lines: dried, frozen, extracts, pulp, and then a separate line for biostimulants. It's a modular system, so that each system can be separated from the others. It's a partnership between 14 organizations, 5 Alaska Native organizations, 6 industry partners, Kodiak Economic Development Corporation, and 2 regional farming organizations, including Alaska Ocean Farms. So this is a supply chain that is close to farmers, that is located in a rural area, that is developed by Alaska Native organization, and that is collaborating closely with other Alaska Native organizations. And this processing platform will serve as a shared regional asset, advancing economic opportunity, sustainability, and equity in the Kodiak region. As an interviewee told me in Q4 2024, this processing equipment will be huge for the kelp farmers. And that was related to the Cordova drying, which is another example that could be shared. That is a kelp drying piece of equipment that is in process of being shipped as we speak. And it is going to be placed in service of the kelp farmers and in service of the needs of the farmers. Moving on to challenge three, hatchery and nursery sector. The problem, current kelp hatchery seed spools are having issues with contamination. We've had a great deal of inconsistency in the quality of kelp seed spools, leading to inconsistent yields and unpredictable output for farmers, which has repercussions all along the supply chain. So this needs to be addressed, and it is. There are 24 AMC projects devoted to hatchery and nursery challenge. 12 of those focus on shellfish, because there is a separate problem in the oyster industry, which is that current oyster seed is not optimized for Alaskan waters. It's optimized for waters to the south, waters that are maybe a little bit warmer, waters that are have different compositions. We need oyster seeds that grow, that are optimized for growth in Alaska. And so there are multiple projects working on that issue, as well as multiple projects providing equipment such as floating upwater systems or FLEPSIs to organizations that are growing oysters that need it. 7 kelp nurseries, to switch the topic to kelp. Kelp requires a robust hatchery nursery sector. A key component of that is consistency in seed. And there is a project to do just that, that is convening 7 kelp nurseries based in Alaska to be trained and to support knowledge exchange around developing consistent quality of seed. As an interviewee told me in Q4 2024, more than anything, we're lacking a knowledge exchange and solid training on nursery production in Alaska. It's a huge bottleneck. That was in Q4 2024. Subsequently, the AMC through SEC developed a kelp seed quality improvement program, and that program has given 3 awards, one of them to Green Wave, to lead a project called Optimizing Kelp Seed Production. This project is developing SOPs, standard operating procedures and methods, to reduce contamination, increase seed quality and consistency. This is the project that's training 7 nurseries that had a workshop in Cordova. It's also providing infrastructure funding and hands-on technical assistance and support to selected nurseries. It's establishing a community of practice to support ongoing knowledge exchange. And it's also supported the containerized nursery in Kodiak, for which SEC is providing additional funding to fund and operate. This project is in progress. We also have, from the oyster end of things, we have 2 JIPs, 2 Joint Innovation Projects, numbers 23 and 24, that are developing hybrid Pacific oyster seeds for Alaska shellfish growers. Co-led by Pacific Hybrid and NOAA Fisheries. They're establishing the state's first selective breeding program for Pacific oysters that is tailored to Alaska's environment. They are working to provide Alaskan farms with locally optimized oyster seed by propagating the most resilient and productive genetic lines. And so this is going to improve consistency, growth, and profitability in Alaska, Alaska oyster industries with the potential for high quality oysters. So that's a summary of AMC's work in these 3 areas. The question is, what's next? I think this is a key graph here. This is the number of AMC-funded projects by status covering these 3 industry challenges. The vast majority, over 2/3 of the work that I've described today, is in progress. Hatchery and nursery sector in particular, 19 out of 24 projects are in progress. Less than a quarter have been completed, and then a small, 1 project from each of these 2 sectors, hatchery, nursery, and product and market, are just beginning. In stabilization, processing, and distribution, they're just a little further on, but not much. 67% of these projects are in progress, including the equipment awards, which are slow, but they are moving along, and they are moving, and the equipment will be delivered, and the impacts will begin to be felt. A point that I'm trying to stress in this presentation is that there are industry challenges and needs that are being identified and that were spoken to me very clearly by interviewees. And AMC funding opportunities are evolving and pivoting in real time to address them. And those include product diversification, value chain development, farmer locally controlled stabilization equipment in rural areas, hatchery knowledge exchange and technical assistance, and then a more diverse set of oyster species with better growth potential. So, what comes next? We will release the memo in December 2025 that has all of these data points and more. We will conduct regional focus groups to provide additional feedback on needs, opportunities, and impacts from the AMC in Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, and Southeast. We will publish the evaluation for all 12 industry challenges covering the work of the AMC to date. We will present that work at the Mariculture Conference of Alaska next March in Anchorage. In Q2 of 2026, we will dive into data gaps that we're seeing develop with subawardees. We will address those data gaps to collect comprehensive data on the indicators that we've developed, which I haven't presented today, but they are going to be listed in the memo as an appendix, so you'll be able to see what they are. And then finally, in the latter half of 2026, we will analyze our data for the final evaluation, which will be completed either in September or sometime thereafter if there are enough projects that have received extensions that we need to wait a little bit to collect data on their impacts. And that is all that I have to present to you today. Thanks so much for listening. We now have a little over 20 minutes for Q&A. So I'm going to open the floor and the chat for questions, comments, feedback, and such. And I see one comment that I want to lift up from Tiffany. There's active research on bioplastics as well, but not funded by the AMC. This is true. Yeah. Thanks.
While we're waiting for folks to formulate their questions, I just want to thank you and your team again, Noah, for putting this together in this fantastic presentation. I did notice that quite a few folks have been joining us, midway through the presentation. This will be hosted up on AMA's YouTube channel at some point as well for you to review any parts you might have missed early on.
Jason, this is Heather.
Hi, Heather.
Hi. Hi, Noah. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question, and it may have been answered before I got online because I was a little bit late. If so, I apologize. I'm interested in knowing, looking at your in the future slide, is this information going to be provided to the general public as well? And what is the plan for that? And how are people approaching that?
Yeah, great question. I think that's to be determined. Jason has mentioned that this presentation will be made public via AMA's website. I know that when the memo comes out, SEC entirely intends to share it on SEC's website. I think this is not a communications document, and so in terms of like what is stressed, what is specifically targeted for the press, I don't have an opinion on this. I mean, these results will be publicly available, and folks can pick them up and work with them. In terms of a communication strategy, that isn't my wheelhouse, so I'll take a pass on that question.
Okay, I understand, and I didn't expect you to have a communications plan, but I guess I'm wondering what people are thinking, people being, AMA and SEC and the governance body and so on, which I serve on. It's public money, and there's a great deal of interest in that. how it's spent and how it's advancing the industry, not just within the industry, but also in the political circles. People ask me all the time, how's it going? What are you doing? What are you doing? There's a lot of money and so on, in a pleasant way, not in a negative way. And I was just imagining that there could be sort of a strategy to let particularly the Alaska public know about some of these accomplishments, some of the issues. People in communities, in particular community governments, are saying to me and others, do you think we should, support this help thing? Is it going to be okay? Is it going to make a difference, et cetera, et cetera? So I think it's super important that we think about that going forward. That's more than a question.
Thank you, Heather.
That's a great point, Heather. I don't see folks from the SEC team. I know a lot of them are down in Seattle for Pacific Marine Expo to field that question, but follow up with you on that one. Weatherly.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks so much, Noah. Uh, oh, I know you mentioned in the beginning the $100 million industry in 10 years, but I didn't notice that like specifically addressed in the presentation. I was wondering how the economic part is looking.
Yeah, that's a great question, Weatherly. It's true, I didn't address it directly. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to address in this context. Um, I would point you to the economic research being conducted by McKinley Research. They uh, produce and send out periodic memos on mariculture industry market trends that has it. I'm fairly certain it'll have more of the kind of data that you will be looking for. As far as trying to project the industry growth into the future, there are a lot of unknowns. And so it's, to state the goals, they're ambitious goals and they depend on many factors that are outside the direct control of the AMC or any of its, lead subawardees or awardees. So that's a fair question. I think we're still, it's to be determined, and I would encourage you to take a look at the McKinley research reports.
Okay, I just looked at their newest report. It looks like it came out a few days ago. And unfortunately, the projections were like again reduced. So I was kind of checking that out, but I wondered how those numbers were gathered.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's been measuring the output from the AMC grant itself has not been a priority because um, it's a very laborious process to do that. You have to collect a lot of data, and so much of that work is in progress that we don't know. It's really been at this point looking at grant resources and the way that they've been directed towards, one or more industry challenges, and then receiving feedback on, whether those are the right things to be funding. And then looking at the level of individual projects and looking at what can be discerned from the reports, and how that matches up with the data from from the Airtable, and then the feedback from the interviews. That's been sort of the triangulation. Economic impact analysis is something that I do and I am capable of it, but it hasn't been priority yet because so much of this has been like in process. And right now we've been more fine tuning, like, is the funding going into the right places? Then, what is the economic impact or multiplier from the funding itself?
Thank you.
Any other questions for Noah? And if you don't want to, come off mute and ask it, feel free to pop it into the chat and we can read it to him as well. Going once, going twice. Here's your.
Hi, I have a question. This is Tiff.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hey Noah, thank you for the excellent presentation. I'm wondering, in this whole process, have you been able to determine if Alaska is unique in how this industry is building up and operating relative to other regional areas? I know that wasn't necessarily what your focus was for this report, but I know you've talked to a lot of people, and I'm wondering if you have anything that you've learned on that topic.
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. That actually hasn't come up very much in this um, in any of these conversations. It's something that I'm curious about. Um, particularly, we have the leading region in the U.S. for mariculture would be New England now with Maine, and then work going on in Long Island Sound. And I'm curious about what that looks like in terms of like where the markets are. Yeah, that's and then there's the world leader in kelp production in Asia, right? China, Vietnam, etc. And the cost structure is totally different, and the market is totally different. And so, there are some real questions there. I agree. This evaluation hasn't gone down those avenues to the extent that I'm also curious about. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I guess the reason I asked that is because I think as stakeholders in the Alaskan industry, each of us have our own perspective on certain hurdles or bottlenecks that might exist in Alaska and not elsewhere. And this report is a really good opportunity, or could be, not that this was the focus of what your work is, but it's hard for stakeholders to bring what's the word, like legitimacy or real proof to the table when working with policy folks on why these bottlenecks are important to address and what is really like what might be holding us back with respect to other developing regions. So just a note on that. So thank you.
Thanks, Tiff.
Floor is open for more questions for Noah. That was enough of a beat for me to jump in and say thanks again, Noah, for this presentation. Thanks to all of you for joining us and staying engaged with the progress of this grant and those of you helping us to grow this industry. It's really great to see so many folks on this call and engaged with this process and with this feedback on the Alaska Mariculture Cluster grant. I'm going to leave a spot for one more question. Other than that, I'm going to give Noah some of his time back as well as the rest of you. That's good enough for me. Any last words, Noah?
Nope. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Definitely stay tuned for more content to come, including the memo next month. And then I hope to see you all at the Mariculture Conference next March.
That's right. All right. Thanks again. Bye, everybody.
All right. Take care. Goodbye.